Many legendary tracks came to be through accidents, wild ideas, and moments when things could have gone absolutely differently. Like Eazy-E, who had to be persuaded for 2 hours just to stand by the mic. What You Want Me to Scream to put out hits? The Gorillaz, who made their first banger with just one single click. That's it. That's the preset. It's the Rock One preset. Music. And that moment when Dr. Dre forced the end of freestyle, after which the whole world found out about Eminem. Hi, my name is Chicka Chicka Slim Shady. So let's go ahead and find out about the birth of some legendary hit songs. How Eazy-E recorded his first track, and we'll be beginning with Compton Boys in a Hood, Eazy-E's first track. About to go in damn near, Eazy-E was a drug dealer in Compton. But after his cousin was killed, he realized he had to get out of the streets, and he set his sights on the music industry. He founded a label by the name of Ruthless Records, together with Jerry Heller, using money he earned with the help of selling drugs. Ice Cube wrote the track Boys in the Hood for the HBO duo. They refused, and the guys decided to create their own band, which received the name NWA. The most interesting part is that Eazy-E never wanted to be a rapper, but Dr. Dre spent 2 hours convincing him to record the song because the producer really liked his voice and charisma. In an interview, Ice Cube recounted in detail how they recorded the track. "What you do, man, you got a voice. Your voice is going to sound good on the record." And he was like, "Hell no." He was like, "All right, give it to me." And then I tried to tell him the rhyme. Back then it was just like, "No man, that ain't how you say that line. Say it like this." So we was going back and forth. It took forever to get 2 or 3 lines out. So Dre was like, "You know what? Everybody just leave. Everybody leave. I'ma work with this dude." So we left. Came back later on that night. They hadn't even finished the first verse. I was like, damn, I'm gone. I left again. Came back the next day. They was in the middle of the second verse. Came back the next night. That same night, they had finished the song. Music. The story behind Feke the Police. However, Eazy-E and NWA's adventures didn't end there. You already know about the scandalous The Police. Ice Cube wrote the song and Dre said it's too harsh. However, after the fact that Eazy-E and Dre were arrested for shooting paintballs at cars, he decided to include it in the release anyway. Are the police coming straight from the underground? A young Kaichis got it back. The FBI didn't like this scandalous song. So, they in turn sent a warning letter to Ruthless and its parent company, Priority, suggesting that NWA should watch their step. One time during one of their shows in Detroit, they were told not to perform this track. The band ignored this warning, and in the end, after gunshots were sounded, they had to escape the police by quite literally running out of the concert. Yeah, it's true that they managed to get away, but they were detained while they were in the hotel. Ice Cube once told an interviewer that they carled us, arrested us all, and all they wanted was damn autographs for their daughters and sons. When Dr. Dre scandalously quit, the making of nothing but a G thing, NWA, he became one of the founders of Death Row Records and began working with Snoop Dogg. The story behind Nothing But a Gang is quite interesting. 1, 2, 3. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door. The thing is that at the time, Snoop was locked up for 3 months for selling drugs, which is why the first version of the track was recorded while Snoop was sitting in a jail cell. Yeah. And I taped the verse. No, I taped the headphone to the mic and I spit it. Yeah. Damn. And when Snoop got out of jail, they created another version. And Dre asked Snoop to rap differently. I wrote the whole song. Then when we went to the studio, he was like, fuck that. I got another beat I want you to do it on. Then he came up with the G thing beat, and then I put the lyrics on that because I was rapping a little bit more aggressive. Like it was like 1, 2, 3 into the, he was like, no, I need to put you 1, 2, 3 into the 1, 2 Snoop Doggy, the story of Still DRE. But we all know very well that the most popular collaboration track of Theirs is still Doctor for them gangsters all across the world and them lose girl. It wasn't Dre who wrote this hit song, and it wasn't Snoop Dogg either. It was actually Jay-Z. When Jay-Z would write for someone, the main thing for him was to get under the artist's skin and understand what sparks their inspiration. His main task was to make the lyrics sound as natural to the rapper as possible. Snoop Dogg recounted how that went down. We in here writing this song, struggling with this beat. We can't come up with, it's like the 4th day. Dr. Dre fly a Bosch from New York into LA. We all in the studio. 30 minutes later, that a mime is done. He wrote Dre and My, and it was flawless. And me and DLC was like, well, looks like this daddy might outstruck us on this one. So we're going to take the back seat and I'm going to accept it. And it was still Dre and it was Jay-Z and he wrote the Holing song. And Scott Storch recounted how the track's legendary melody was created. Dre programmed this kick and snare. I think his food arrived and he was within earshot, like right outside the control room was this kitchen area, and he was eating a sandwich and I was just noodling on the piano and I started playing Bling Bling. Bling on top of this drum pattern that he had, and he poked his head and he was like, "That's it for the gangsters." All across the world, Eminem forgot he was in this music video. And Eminem features in this music video even though he once forgot about that. You don't remember that because you was running on the beach, because in the video, what? It was a bunch of girls around you, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, okay. Now I remember. Come on, man. Quit playing. The making of My Name Is. And now let's talk about how Marshall's first hit song, My Name Is, was created. My Name Is after 1996. Dre started going through a tough period. He took a break but basically didn't work with anyone. He thought long and hard about what his next step should be. And this is when he was once sitting with Jimmy Iovine listening to demos of different artists. Suddenly, Eminem's disc played from the CD player. Dre stopped and said, "What the is this? I really need to meet this guy." They got in contact with Marshall, who arrived a couple of days later to meet up with Jimmy and Dre. Funny enough, Dre was surprised to see that Eminem is white. The guys got to the studio, and in the very first second, M gave them this. "Hi, my name is Chicka Chicka Slim Shady," doing the hook, and he looked at me kind of funny, like, "You going to use that as a hook, you know?" Then the more I started saying it, the engineers in the studio started saying it, you know what I'm saying? Everybody was like, "Oh, hi, my name is." He continued freestyling to the beat, and after he was done, he didn't like it, and he asked Dre to start the beat from the top. And Dre was like, "Yo, are you crazy? Let's just punch." And this is how the legendary track My Name Is, and one of the most provocative in the history of hip-hop, came to be. "Hi, my name is, by the way." M also wrote Forgot About Dre for him and Snoop Dogg. He laid the reference vocals for Snoop, and Dre really vibed with it, and they stuck to this version. Talk like they got something to say, but nothing comes out when they move their lips. Just a bunch of gibbery. Dre himself has no idea what got to M to write such a song. However, we think that Marshall did it from how immensely grateful he was. "I feel like Dre saved my life. He said he saved his life." Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. The story of Drop It Like It's Hot. But due to the fact that Dre had no time for Snoop Dogg, Snoop decided to work with the Neptunes, and more specifically with Chad Hugo and Pharrell Williams. And we will now be talking about the track Drop It Like It's Hot. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Drop It like literally created music on the fly. Listen carefully to this beat. Instead of the usual melodies, he used tone clicks, hissing, and minimal drumming, taking inspiration from the atmosphere of the track White Horse. You'd think the track is already ready, but Chad Hugo added the final touch, which simply blew for real in Snoop's minds. "Chad, what it do?" "You put that piece on there. Drop it like it's hot. We thought it was done till you put that music when you put that Royce rig on there. That was like the candle on the cake. We was like, go damn," was like the candle on the cake. We was like, go damn. Damn, I made the beat. I started putting like spray cans on it. You did, you did. That's what you did. You was like, "Nigga, I need to throw that on there too." Put that on there. Sound effect was somebody spray painting some gang on the wall. I'm like, this chat is really into this right here. How the Neptunes made a beat by banging on a table, clips grindin'. Pharrell and Chad always had strange ideas about how to create music. Let's take a track from Clips as an example. Check it out. They were just hanging out, sitting in the studio, and the idea suddenly got to them. Let's go ahead without melodies and without samples. Why don't we just do it in a way where it sounds like boys at school tapping their desks? In the end, they created such a beat. And when Pusha T heard it, he asked Pharrell, "Is this even considered music?" And he responded saying, "That's the whole point here. The flow comes first. I'm the neighborhood pusher. Call me subwoofer." The story of Clint Eastwood. Do you know who else didn't care and also created music in the way he wanted? Damon Albarn from Gorillaz. He also blended rock with rap. And you've probably heard the track Glen Eastwood. Albarn did not create a sample for this song. He used a standard preset. Just came like that. That's it. That's the preset. It's the Rock 1 preset. Finally, me out of my cage. Time for me is nothing 'cause I'm count. This sample from Clint Eastwood became the Gorillaz' hallmark in the music industry. Is it cheating? Maybe. However, for some reason, it didn't occur to anyone other than Damon to create a song using a universally accessible melody. Del the funky Homo sapien features in this track, and according to his own words, he initially shouldn't have been there. Producer Dan the Automator made a last-minute decision to ask him to write his verse for the track, in hopes that he would do it better. The initial version of the song was created together with the British group Phi Life Cypher. The producer told him what to write about, and the rapper wrote down the lyrics in 30 minutes and forgot about it. Sometime later, a buddy of his came up to him and said, "Wart, your new song you got out." I'm like, "What new song?" "You don't know." They like laughing at me and like, "It's playing on the radio all the time, dude." "You don't know about your own song. It's a hit song." I'm like, "No, what is you talking about?" Like something about gorillas. And I'm like, "Gorillas? Like, no, you can't be talking about that." Like, who was Ms. Jackson really about? It's insane how hit songs can be created last minute. However, you understand that making tracks is not just about creating melodies, but also about the possible story behind them. The Outkast duo had such a song called Miss Jackson. Jackson was in the year of 1998 when Outkast were one of the main faces of the hip-hop industry. Their last two albums garnered a lot of attention in the industry. However, they were going through tough times in their personal lives. Andre was going through a breakup with his baby mama, Erykah Badu, which seriously hurt the rapper. At the same time, Big Boy's relationship with his wife wasn't going very well either. He already had a kid at that time, but then he had a second, but this time it was from a different woman. And so the guys had to return to the studio to escape the problems in their personal lives. The song is mostly directed at Ms. Wright, aka Colleen Wright, the mother of Andre's baby mama, Erykah Badu. But Andre chooses to replace her name with the generic Miss Jackson, so that this song would remain relevant to all the baby mamas in the world. Andre revealed in an interview that he was too nervous to address Erykah's mom face-to-face. So he decided to apologize indirectly through this song. "I liked it, but how did my mama feel? Our baby, she bought her a Miss Jackson license plate. She had the mug merch pop-up shop. She had the ink pan. She had the headband, everything. How Kanye recorded a track with his jaw wired shut. Meanwhile, Kanye has a song dedicated to a car crash. In 2002, he nearly died. His car hit another car at full speed and he fractured his jaw in a few different places. Doctors literally put his face back together piece by piece and sewed his jaw with a metallic wire. But instead of taking a break, Kanye went to the studio with a swollen face and a mouth he could barely open. And he recorded the track through the wire. The name was no metaphor. He really did rap on the microphone through his wired mouth. This was perhaps the most unusual creative concept amongst all of the ones we discussed today. Drink a boo for breakfast and for dessert. Somebody order pancakes. I just scissor. The story of See You Again. But another car accident ended tragically with the death of Paul Walker. He was a legend and was one of people's favorites from the Fast and Furious sequel. And after Paul Walker's tragic death, the Fast and Furious team were faced with the question, which is how to adequately bid farewell to the people's favorite hero. Universal and the Atlantic label organized sort of like a competition. Dozens of authors were supposed to offer their versions of the farewell song. Among them was someone who is not yet known at the time, and that's Charlie Puth. He hadn't even seen a single scene from the movie. He just went to the studio with producer DJ Frank E and began playing the chords. Initially, they wanted to make the track sort of Dable, but Puths insisted on a piano ballad. This was personal for him as a few years ago he lost a friend in a car crash. So he wrote the words, "See You Again," literally stemming from his own pen. After the studio approved the song, the search for the ideal voice for the chorus began for real. Atlantic Records initially looked into more well-known artists to fill the role of the vocalist. The sort of names that were thrown as options included Chris Brown, Jason Derulo, and the very same Sam Smith. Each of them recorded their own versions of the chorus. Puth was not initially against it, but after the song became personal to him, he insisted that he himself would voice the chorus. It's interesting that the very same emotional vocals that the whole world heard in See You Again were actually the first and only double that they recorded for the demo. Then they needed to add hip-hop style verses. They looked into Eminem, 50 Cent, and Tiger, but the choice fell on Wiz Khalifa. I said, See You Again was originally developed for IM. I can see that. Khalifa was already one of them in the Fast and Furious family. He wrote the verses in a single night while imagining that he's talking to his friend who's no longer there. In the end, they made a song that's not only become a soundtrack, but also a musical farewell. And it broke the charts across the world. the story of I Need a Doctor. And if we're already talking about friendship, then we can end with a track called I Need a Doctor by Eminem and Dr. Dre, which was released in 2011. I told the World Day at Say around the time this song was in the making. Dr. Dre had been on long hiatus from music due to grief and depression that ensued from the passing of his son, Andre Young Jr. In 2008, he also reflected on the impact music had on his life and how it gave him the strength to carry on. I Need a Doctor is his testimonial of the role of music in his recovery. Eminem tasked himself with taking on the role of the producer of the project in a creative sense. He didn't just initiate the meetup, he also picked out the theme of the song and stood firm in advocacy of every detail that was important in keeping the emotional power of the track. Car Crash, I think, is just metaphorically speaking like feels like Dre's been in a coma, like me, and hip-hop are trying to wake him up in his verses. Eminem raps about how Dr. Dre believed in him, even though it meant risking his own career, and he said that he is indebted to him for the remainder of his life. Even here, Eminem generally portrays himself as the guardian of the track's sincerity. His strategy completely paid off. He later speaks that the greatest reward for him was Dre's reaction. That very sparkle in the eyes of his mentor for whom everything was planned for. And Dre in turn recalls his history and poses the question of where are the so-called friends, those who kept telling him that they would be with him till the end. But in the end, they left and it was only Eminem who stuck around. This is exactly why we love music, because a song can be so unique in how it's made. Sometimes it can be made as a result of an interesting approach to music. Sometimes it's the opposite, as a result of a too simple of an approach, and sometimes as a result of a story. We can do part 2 if you're interested. Which songs should we include in the next edition? Let us know in the comments. You're with the Music Vibe channel. And the next video that I recommend you watch is the documentary film about yet another genius, and that's Rick Rubin. Bye everyone. About yet another genius, and that's Rick Rubin. Bye everyone.